Welcome to the 359. I'm Roger Chang.
I'm Ayaz Akhtar.
Nintendo unveiled the Switch Lite, a low-cost version of its blockbuster Switch console. It's $100 less, but there are some trade-offs. It's smaller, doesn't come with detachable Joy-Cons, and can't connect to the TV. That said, it's reasonably priced at $200. What do you think about it?
I'm kind of confused about it. If you already have a Switch, you lose out a lot of functionality with the Switch Lite. It does not connect to a television at all, so it's just a portable device. Now, there's a lot of great games for the Switch, but in my house, the Switch is more of a family device. I know you can attach other controllers to this wirelessly, but I don't see myself gathering around that small 5.5-inch screen.
Yeah, my initial reaction was to kind of question this, but as I thought it through, it actually makes kind of sense as a portable gaming device. This would replace the 3DS, the 2DS, or it can work as a second or even third Nintendo Switch in the household, if you've got a big enough family. I just noticed with my Switch, I spend a vast majority of the time just using it on the tablet itself, and so having the TV functionality may not necessarily be that critical for some folks.
I'm kind of curious how the game sharing will work. If you're in a household and you already have a Switch and you get a Switch Lite, can you share games, run the games at the same time? Can you even use this thing as a controller for a Switch? I don't think you can.
No, it's actually a question, though. Scott asked Nintendo that very thing, and they hinted that they were working on some sort of way to get some sort of game sharing mechanism, because I think it would make a lot of sense if you've got multiple Switches in the household, having a household account.
It'd be like a reward for buying more Nintendo products.
Exactly. Next up, let's talk 5G. Our own Katie Collins has a nice rundown of what the early next-generation wireless deployment looks like in Europe. One of the big things is, despite all the growing pains, one of the big appeals in Europe, at least so far, is no additional fees and really kind of unlimited data.
Right, but they're charging for more speed in general. So kind of like home internet.
No, that's in the U.S.
Right.
So that's the thing. In Europe right now, there are no fees. And it kind of goes back to a commentary I wrote last week when I advocated that really carriers around the world should take this model, not charge additional fees, not charge data caps, or have throttling limits. Right now, like Verizon, I think has kind of the best and worst example, right? They were going to charge a $10 fee, which they have temporarily waived, but they also don't count the data on 5G against your cap.
That's not bad at all.
So there's a bit of a trade-off there. I would advocate you should just eliminate all fees.
It'd be nice to be able to just go, okay, I'm paying X amount of money per month. Just give me the latest technology. Let's keep moving ahead.
Keep in mind, when 4G came out, they didn't charge anything extra for that either.
That's true. But again, where they can be, money can be made,
yes.
Telecoms will find a way.
Absolutely. And then lastly, talking about VidCon kicks off today. The opening panel actually is one devoted to deepfakes. Now, so-called synthetic video basically make it super easy now for you to basically plant Tom Cruise's head on somebody else's body and make them run and jump and do potentially offensive things. What do you think?
I think this is a really important thing for VidCon in general to get ahead of, because if you are a YouTuber and you have a great channel, you don't want to find out that there's a splinter channel of you doing crazy stuff that you didn't do. It could also harm your brand. The idea that you can't trust video anymore. How do you prove you are you?
Right.
So these kinds of things need to be explained, because this is new territory. It's one thing, it's like, that's not me in that photo. But it's like, that's you in that video, right? It's like, no, it's not. It's a deep fake. There's got to be ways for these video talent to understand how to deal with that.
Right. The panel session is called Don't Panic, Prepare. So, it's just, I think this is something we all have to kind of get ahead of, right?
Yeah, I'm afraid so.
For more of these stories, check us out on CNET. I'm Roger Chang.
I'm Ayaz Akhtar.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks as always for joining us for the recording of the audio podcast, which you can subscribe to using the links in the description below. Let's talk Nintendo, shall we? Actually, first, we want to give a little shout out. It is Nikola Tesla's birthday. Happy birthday. And then we got a note from our friend F.A. Fotografia. He says, remember me? Thank you guys. I got that green S10 Plus and I'm in love with it. Zero complaints by now. Punk case, Spartan case, recommended. Great solution for 360 protection and a finger scanner. Full usability with that case. So, hey, we're happy to help. Remember that we had that emergency a couple episodes ago where he was like, guy standing in line, he had two phones in hand. We had to give him a recommendation on the fly.
S10 Plus? Nice.
Yeah.
And in green. That's a cool color.
Yeah, the green is an excellent selection. Well done.
So anyways, we did our good deed, and I just wanted to make sure that was well known. First question is coming in from Jay from Jersey. He says, I was debating about picking up a Switch, but $300 was too steep for only a few games. $200 is a lot more reasonable. Wish I could buy an adapter to hook it up to the TV, though. I wonder if anything like that would be in the works. I mean, I have had a Switch. It's quickly become one of my favorite consoles of all time. Worth every aspect of it, just being able to convert back and forth. Do you think Nintendo would develop something, or at least a third party? Granted, we have heard a couple of horror stories about Nintendo Switches and third-party adapters causing them to blow up.
Yeah, I mean, they seem to shut the door on this being compatible with TV. I think they really want to reserve that slot for the more expensive $300 Switch. That said, you're right. There might be a third-party maker that could, have a USB to HDMI, and it would be really hard. I mean, I think part of the reason why this is a stripped-down version is I don't think it's actually technically able to do it.
Yeah, I'm curious how it's wired, because I know the USB-C ports used for charging. I seriously doubt that they would even give you the option internally, internally to have a video output at all, because if it's not hooked up for that, it won't do it at all.
Sure.
So the question is whether they completely re-engineered the logic board or not. So if they're using the same board and they used a different processor or something like that, maybe you could hack a way to do it, but you're probably going to be going against Nintendo and dealing with updates that will break this functionality over time.
Yeah.
Matthew,
So I wouldn't count on it.
Matthew Datcher does kind of point out, if it can't connect to a TV, can it really be called a Switch? I thought the whole point was that it went between the two modes.
That is an excellent question. I mean, I think, for one, Scott's son, I think who he quotes in the lead of his story says the very same thing, right? You can't really call it a Switch if it can't actually switch. That said, I think the Switch has kind of gone beyond its core functionality. The Switch is a brand, right? People we just sort of associate the word or the term Switch with like a really amazing console. And I think that's what Nintendo is banking on with this new version.
Or maybe this Switch here means more like when you grab a branch, so you can beat people with it. So it's a Switch Lite. So
That's so dark.
It's not that it switches, from function to function. It's a switch you take off the tree.
It's an actual physical Switch.
That's right.
All right. I don't know how the marketing folks are going to deal with that one. But
Beat your kid with a Nintendo Switch Lite.
I said, for me, the idea that I could play a AAA title on a mobile device, right? No other mobile device really has the kind of games that the Switch offers. That's going to be appealing to a certain demographic. Folks who are a little bit more, wallet conscious.
I could see it saying like Nintendo Switch starting at $199, and then you're like, $199. Oh, if I pay another $100, I get all the other stuff.
They could be doing that as well. I mean, that could be part of the push. You're like, it's an upsell for sure.
When this thing hits $149, like at Black Fridays, or $99 within like 2 years, I think that, and then it's a much easier thing to swallow. Like, why would I get the Switch Lite over the proper Switch? It's like, well, this is only $150, or only $100.
How much is the 2DS and the 3DS?
Not a clue.
Okay.
As Datcher says, your brain goes to strange places.
That is a weird place to go.
Yeah.
Just looking up words.
It is all about the brand recognition, and ultimately, it still functions in at least half of the same way, but what it really comes down to, and as Photographia says, this is a Super Game Boy Advance. This isn't really a Switch anymore, even though it's playing the same titles. A lot of titles port back and forth. I mean, heck, most of the stuff we played on consoles these days are on your mobile phone anymore, so does that make my Samsung Galaxy a Sega Genesis? No. But, I don't know. I don't have a problem with this. I don't need it anytime soon, since I already have a regular Switch and a Pro Controller and the whole 9 yards. But, I'm kind of interested what they think the market is going to be for it. What do you think?
I mean, Scott brought up the point again. Like, if you've got a big family, maybe this is a low-cost second or third Switch. If you've got multiple kids, folks who want to play games like Breath of the Wild or Mario Odyssey, but don't want to go all in on the Switch, or don't care about playing on the TV. A lot of folks do just like playing mobile games. That's kind of how a lot of folks are conditioned at this point. They play on their phone first. And the TV is kind of a secondary experience. Maybe it's for them. I don't know.
Maybe it's for the more mobile generation, because the idea of being stuck at home with this device versus like, okay, I can just run around with this. That was the whole appeal of the Switch in general, though you could do both.
Yes.
But these games are so good, maybe people just want to play them on the go.
Yeah, exactly.
Just on the go.
Yeah, exactly.
For sure. I mean, definitely worth it on the go. I mean, that's how I occupy most of my miserable train rides here in New York City. All right, let's floor a couple questions. I'm going to toss this to you guys, and then I'm going to go grab something. So I need you to vamp for a second. Don't get distracted by me getting up from my seat.
Okay.
We won't.
So here from CKT, how much will the light cost, and what colors are we going to see? And are there any dwindling rumors about a Switch Pro in contrast?
Yes, so the Switch Lite will cost $200. Comes in four colors. Three main colors are turquoise, gray, and yellow, and then there is a white special edition for Pokemon
With some drawings on the back.
with some etching in the back.
Will there be a Pro?
Will there be a Pro? That's a good question. There's continuous rumors of a larger screen, better processor, an amped up version.
Yeah, the Switch Lite's using a different processor though, right? So that one is supposed to be more power efficient.
Yes.
Which is interesting because they could put that in the Switch proper at some point if they wanted to. But then again, I think it's been running it's a Tegra 1 or something like that. It's the same thing that's in the NVIDIA Shield TV. So it's kind of a dated processor at this point. If they choose to move to a faster processor, maybe there's a Pro version of this. I could see them moving to like an OLED screen, higher res screens.
Maybe adding Bluetooth.
Adding Bluetooth audio. There's no Bluetooth audio on
Bluetooth
any
audio, yeah.
of these devices, Switch or Switch Lite. So it's kind of, I could see, I think Nintendo's going to see how well this thing does before they go, we're going to revamp the Switch. Maybe the Switch just gets updated like Switch S or whatever the thing
Although
would be.
if you hear the rumors, there is a Pro in development. So it's not like they can look at how the market reacts and then start working on one. I'm sure they've got, in the R&D area, they've got, there we go.
That's open.
Oh gosh. All right, here we go. This is what I want, actually. I want
like
a new version of this. Not new, just bring
twice
this
as
back.
thick as the
Look at this. Look at this sucker.
That's impressive.
Wow.
This is a big screen. So the other one's this got like a 6.2.
This is a little screen, but for some reason I have fond memories of this. Almost as much as I adore the Switch, I have fond memories of the Game Boy.
Now the biggest question in the world is, does the Nintendo Switch Lite have a kickstand?
No, I don't believe it does.
Very important to know.
It does not. But
How will you be able to gather around to play?
well, how will you have the thing fall because the kickstand is terrible? It doesn't actually work.
I like the idea though. Of,
This has its own kickstand. If I just shimmy this, although the AAA batteries or the AA batteries, I kind of love that.
AA, right? That thing was gigantic.
Oh,
I
yeah,
forgot about
4
that.
AA's, and it ran for a while. Anyway, yeah. In terms of the Pro, though, I think there's one probably in R&D or maybe even closer to in development or in production than we think. I don't know if I'd want a bigger screen on this thing because after a while, like,
Well, there's a huge bezel on it. So if they could go
If they
edge to
eliminate the
edge on
bezel,
that,
yeah,
you could
yeah.
probably do something with that technology. You could do, like I said,
because you
OLED.
couldn't change the dimensions of that thing because the Joy-Cons would still have to be. Presumably, they use the same Joy-Cons.
Right, because if you want to switch them, I'll switch them up, haha.
Right.
But the thing is, these over time, these get creaky. That's what Scott was mentioning, and
Yeah.
because the light is unibody, it's one thing. You're not
Mm-hmm.
going to have the same kind of issues with popping off the Joy-Cons.
One thing we didn't talk about: the Lite has a proper D-pad
Oh yeah, on the right side, correct?
on the left side.
Oh right, instead of these buttons.
Instead of the buttons, it actually has like a Nintendo or
cross.
NES style D-pad, or like this guy right here for like Street Fighter fighting games. That'd be kind of great to have.
And Nintendo rep is like, we have no plans to do this
Yeah.
for the Nintendo Switch.
They immediately
It's
like nixed that idea
Don't
for the
s-
Joy-Cons. I'm like, no, this is what we want.
Yeah, I get the idea though, because you're supposed to be able to have the same experience on both
Right.
when you hand these off to people. But maybe
Still,
that's why you got to buy the Pro controller.
yeah, it's just more
Only
money.
$60.
Do you
can
have Do you have the Pro controller?
My fiance just got it as a gift, so I'm very excited to use that because
And she got it for you as a gift. She got it for herself.
herself.
Okay.
like
And you're just gonna use it.
because
immediately
I
just-
cannot stand these little dinky things.
Yes.
Like I'm trying to like race, and you're like, it's like working on a freaking like toothpick. It's
My hands are tiny, so it's not as bad.
my hands cramp like crazy with that.
I mean, I was pleasantly surprised by the Joy-Cons, but yeah, I bought a Pro controller too, and it's totally worth it. Especially if you're used to like GameCube controlling, that thing's legendary. So the Pro controller holds up real nice. All right, let's take a couple more questions while we still got a few minutes left. Any news on the Switch being used as an enhanced Xbox controller with display and pairing with PC for PC-based games?
Oh,
For the Switch or Switch Lite?
I think he's talking about the Switch.
So essentially, they're wondering if there's going to be any major cross-platform capabilities.
Oh man, I want to say probably. I don't think the actual hardware is going to work. I think there's been talk. Microsoft's been like putting olive branches out everywhere, trying to get more cross compatibility between the same titles. Anyway, so you can play a Switch player can play an Xbox player can play a Windows player.
Got it.
Sony, I think, is the last domino to fall because I think they allowed that.
I think he's asking about hardware.
Hardware-wise,
right?
I seriously doubt it.
It's hard for me to say. Yeah, that would happen. Because when Apple Arcade came out, they mentioned like compatibility with a bunch of different controllers like Sony, like PS4 and Xbox. I think the Switch was missing from that though.
Right. That seems to make sense though.
And that makes sense given the different protocols that are in the Joy-Con.
Is that what you finished thought there? I thought you had more to say.
Nah, I stopped because my brain just stopped working.
Bananas.
Okay, let's talk a little bit more about further enhanced capabilities with the Switch and the future of that franchise. Do you think Nintendo Pro could have phone or video chat capabilities?
Then it's just an Android phone.
I would think no, because it would start killing the battery life on this device. It already is.
I mean, I feel like chat capability would be good to have, but maybe if it's like connected, I don't know. Like I feel like it is kind of missing a chat function, like a proper chat functionality.
It needs Bluetooth audio.
Yeah.
I mean, I love that it's got a headphone jack. It's very important, but you should be able to hook up a Bluetooth headset with it.
But even with like a wired headset, like there isn't really a good video chat ability for that. That's something that Xbox and PS4s had. So
I think it's possible in the course of like 2 to 3 years, because if they're just going to rev this kind of like Sony and Microsoft have done, but they keep the same brand, the games still work. They just rev the hardware every couple of years. Yeah, I think we could see something like that. But
that's an interesting concept. Like, so like folks don't feel left behind if they just keep upgrading their console. Like the games still work, which is pretty much like the opposite of everyone else.
The other thing is, if you had a Switch, and let's say you get a Switch Pro, this one becomes the handheld that goes around the house.
Yeah.
The other one gets plugged into the USB-C dock, and you keep switching the Switch.
Right, and then
There
the
you go.
Switch Lite becomes even less important.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
I think that is a stopgap. I don't see that thing surviving very long.
Yeah, we'll see. I sort of see it as basically the replacement for 3DS and 2DS.
Well, I was looking at the price of that. The 2DS is around $80. So,
but that's after numerous price cuts.
Right.
It is a years old console at this point. It's
Yeah.
gone through numerous. So it didn't start out that price.
right. That's why I think the Switch Lite in about 3 years, if it's assuming it
When
survives,
it's like an $80.
it's going to be a really easy thing to pick up. Like,
Yeah.
do I need this? Doesn't make a lot of sense. It's $80. I don't really
Yeah,
care.
yeah.
Matthew Datcher says, I miss the old days when we could plug a Game Boy right into the GameCube. Do you think you're going to see anything like that in 2019?
No.
Sorry.
It's going to be all virtual again. They have their service, right? You don't have the same virtual consoles like you had on the Wii U and the Wii.
No, they
have
got their
Nintendo something.
their Switch Online. You mean?
Yes, thank
with
you.
their NES player, their
Right.
not their virtual console.
They have like a library that you can
Yeah.
access, but you don't get to buy them, right? It's
It's free. It comes with your online subscription, which is like $20 a year. or
Right, it's kind of
$4 a month.
Netflixy in execution.
yeah, kind of.
I'm sorry, Brian.
It's kind of like Netflix, that game library that you get access
But
to.
right now, it's only like I forget how many NES games, no Super NES games, which I'm still waiting for.
Isn't it like 30 or 40 or something?
Yeah, okay.
I feel like they just added a few too, because I was poking around on there the
they
other
do
night.
continually add to them, and there are games like Tetris 99 that work well at that service. But
They want you to either buy the service or rebuy the games or something like that. There's no way. I don't see there being like a hardware adapter for this.
like you just plug it.
I'm going
into
to plug in
another-
this Fall of the Foot Clan, which was a great game.
What?
It really was a
Oh
good game.
yeah, that was a great game.
I enjoyed it. It actually looked good.
Yeah,
I was like,
for a
how
Game
is that
Boy game,
possible?
it was kind of amazing.
And the green worked. The green screen worked
there you go.
for the turtles.
I would think that there is some potential there for cross-platforming between at least the 3DS and the Switch, at least maybe using a 3DS as a controller, or even back in the day when you would jump from one game like a Metroid from Game Boy over to the GameCube on Prime, you would get like bonus things, like extra content in the game, unlockable kind of stuff. I feel like they're missing opportunities there, but maybe that didn't really take off.
I feel like this Lite is basically their signal that they're moving away from the 3DS and 2DS. Like they're probably going to sunset those platforms because it just makes sense to have pretty much your entire base on one platform. It's just easier for developers to make games on it, right? As opposed to making games for different consoles, you just have one platform. You get developers' full attention on that one console.
So Nintendo's dreams of 2 screens will die?
Maybe.
That's too bad. I like the idea of it. The Wii U thing was a nightmare. But
Oh yeah,
it's like
yeah.
you got two screens. It's like, yeah, but
Kinda.
But why?
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like you answered Datcher's other question, which was, is there any point to buy a 3DS or 2DS in 2019? Hey, before we go any farther, hey guys, say hi to Devin.
Hi,
Hi,
Devin.
Devin.
Devin is CKT's 10-year-old son who is joining us for the show today.
Oh, hi. We'll be sure not to swear.
Again.
Still on the terms of 3DS, Jay from Jersey is wondering if Nintendo's going to port that library over.
Oh.
How is that going to work with the dual screen aspect? Or would you see two different displays on your monitor?
you
Got to use
could,
2 Switches in tandem.
technically.
How would you operate the actual touchscreen aspect if you're going to port some of these games over?
I mean, there's already a touchscreen on the Switch.
So you'd have to have the Switch in front of you, but how could you get the game on the television for the other screen?
Oh, you're right.
So I guess you could stack them this way, right? So if you did the 3DS this
Yeah,
way,
and then you'd have
you
to-
just pop this piece off and you have this is your controllers.
I don't know.
I think it'd be difficult to port because the
Yeah.
3DS, the two screen model is a very difficult thing to replicate. I think
Yeah.
that might have been the point of the Wii U, that you could have the same thing.
right.
Like you have the tablet, it's got a touchscreen, you
Yeah,
got that
yeah,
larger
yeah.
screen up there. I think that's what they were going for, but it just was, there's so many reasons why that didn't take off. And for the other question of, is there any reason to buy a 3DS? Because it's cheap, the games are really good, and you can probably pick up a big library for the same cost
Yeah, for a fairly low price.
as a Switch Lite or a Switch.
Right. Keep in mind, these Switch games are pretty expensive, right? They rarely go on sales.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just looking at 50, 60 bucks a title there, that's a pretty big investment. A 3DS, yeah, you're probably not going to get as many new games, but there's a huge catalog of old good games. So if
Yeah.
you're new to that platform, it's still probably a great experience.
Yeah, it's a nice little. If you that idea of like I want to play this mobile game all the time, it's like yeah, I'll just get a 2DS now and keep that in my bag for the
Right.
airports. There we go.
Although I say the idea of being able to play, like if I didn't have the Switch already, the idea of being able to play Breath of the Wild or Mario Odyssey on a mobile device, again, that is pretty attractive to me. $200 kind of is on that cusp of being kind of a no-brainer decision. It still needs to be, I think, a little bit, maybe a lot cheaper.
It'll
for me
get there.
Yeah, for me to have it become an impulse purchase item, right? So, $200 kind of is at the line where, if I fork over another $100, there's a lot more capability involved. So, yeah.
Hardware aside, a good library is a good library, and there's rarely an occasion to say that you shouldn't get a console that you're interested in just because of a price differentiation. Even some of the worst consoles have a couple of golden games on them, like the Atari Jaguar had, what was it, Wario's Woods in there, and that was pretty solid.
That's a deep cut.
That's a deep cut, but
Atari
still,
Lynx,
like,
I like that.
there's a piece of me, with them releasing all of the retro consoles back as the mini consoles and all that, and seeing more and more people like Sega get on board with porting their stuff to mobile,
Yep.
as Nintendo slowly starts to inch into that, drop their foot in that water. I mean, I wish I could have gone back and gotten an original PlayStation. That was a console I never had. So any reason to not get a 3DS? If you're interested in the library, go for it. I mean, those games, like, there's always going to be those games. Those libraries are so dense and deep that they're never going to port everything. So if you're looking for something,
There's really like a timeless aspect to some of those games. They weren't really built on the promise of like crazy graphics or whatever. Like the gameplay is
Gameplay's
just
great.
really amazing. And so yeah, I think it's aged fairly well.
all right, so we're almost out of time here. Real quick, Michael Brown says, I think the Switch and the Switch Lite are great, but I'd love for Nintendo to make more of their classic games available on the App Store or the Play Store. CKT did point out today that Nintendo released Dr. Mario on Google Play.
Yep.
Plus, they've got like those Mario Eternal Runner game that was out there. What was it called? Mario Jump or something like that?
Mario Run.
Super Mario
Raspberry
Run.
Run.
Keep in mind the Dr. Mario game is not the original Dr. Mario. This
Right,
is
it's a
specific
remaster
game
kinda thing.
It's specifically built for iOS and Android. It's a mobile game. There's a lot of in-app purchase elements to it, so it's
course.
not like the old Dr. Mario. It's definitely optimized for today's mobile gaming experience, which usually means forking over money for extra.
Yeah, the first one's
perks and
free.
benefits.
That's how they get you hooked, and then they charge you for extras.
What?
It's Dr.
What?
Mario. There's lots of pills in it. It's just too
Your
easy.
mind does go to dark places.
Well, it's the morning. Well, where else would it go?
It does still largely play the same as far as mechanics go, but yeah, it's not the same game, but it's a similar experience
Yeah,
if you're really
yeah,
looking
yeah.
for it. And again, that was a solid puzzler back in the day, and still holds up pretty well. So on our closing thought, CKT wants to know, do you think someday Nintendo might port the games over to Stadia?
Oh no, I'm going with no. Unless it's, I mean, you're talking about their first party games because they're very protective of their core franchises. I don't think beyond like the dabble that they've done in like mobile games, which are not the actual core games, but sort of spin-offs. Like I don't think you'll ever see Breath of the Wild or the sequel, on Stadia or some streaming platform. Nintendo is very protective. They have a huge like walled garden approach when it comes to those first-party titles.
I could also see them coming up with like a Stadia competitor or working on their own streaming service before they would join up with Google. Then again, seeing Nintendo show up on an Apple stage with Super Mario Run, that was kind of crazy too. So whether Google's working on a ton of negotiations with Nintendo, like you said, Nintendo is really protective. The fact that you get specific versions of their games on iOS and Android, and they're not even like retreads. It's like, this is a brand new game. It's meant for mobile. It's totally different. That's it's showing that their way of thinking is their hardware and their consoles and handhelds is where they still see their future. And if they go to Stadia, that would be a huge coup. I would think that'd be very intriguing.
Oh yeah.
Very true. Nintendo has always been very precious about their property, but can you really blame them? They've had a legacy to hold on to, and they've done pretty well for 40 plus years in the game. Almost 40 years in the gaming world, video gaming world that is, and then pretty close to a century prior to that. So can't really blame them.
When all else fails, they'll bring back the playing cards, and it'll be great.
Yeah.
Can't wait for Nintendo playing cards.
That little boxing gun thing with the punchy hand that would extend out of it, that was their real claim to fame, right?
That was them too.
I don't know if was that them.
It's definitely them.
Okay.
Thanks everybody for joining us for yet another wonderful edition of the 359 podcast. Excellent questions and comments all around. We look forward to seeing you back here tomorrow. Go ahead and hit the like and subscribe and all that jazz. Tell your friends, and we'll continue to see the platform grow as we extend into the daily charge. And on that note, Roger.
Yep, the 359 is available on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, Google Podcasts, Feedburner, the Amazon Alexa, and of course, CNET.com. See you all tomorrow.
Bye, folks.